Today should have been a very positive day for AEW. Today, of course, was the big upfronts presentation for Warner Brothers Discovery right here in New York City. As a matter of fact, it was in Madison Square Garden, WWE's home away from home. The big announcement about their new television show, which is now official, AEW Collision, is going to be coming on June 17th, premiering on TNT, 2 hours of live wrestling every Saturday night, for the first time on Turner Networks in well over 20 years. And that should have been the big news of the day. We did not get any other news about a television deal. We did not get anything about streaming. A lot of that has been rumored and talked about. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But instead of talking about the Collision announcement, as people were doing earlier in the day, we end up talking about CM Punk. Because it always seems to come back down to CM Punk. There was no CM Punk mention in the announcement today, although there were indications that as of this morning, the original press release was going to have CM Punk's name in it. And CM Punk's likeness was in the artwork until it wasn't. And now as the day went on, we have all this news and reports leaking out about drama and how Punk was pulled from the announcement and that there could be trouble in paradise and maybe now his return is in jeopardy. And maybe now we won't be getting CM Punk back in AEW. And all of this just nonsense around CM Punk. Once again, just marring what should have been a positive day for AEW. And Tony Khan, all I can say as far as Tony Khan is concerned is you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. I guarantee you this will not be the last time that something like this happens. We still don't know exactly what the hell is going on. But Tony Khan was on the show tonight to make some announcements. Talked about it last week, like there were going to be a couple of really big announcements coming up. And honestly, it was just more of what we already knew. Pretty disappointing. Nothing really new from Tony Khan tonight, although we'll talk about what that was as far as the dates of future collisions coming up. Tonight was also supposed to be Don Callis coming to the ring at the end of the show to explain to us why he did what he did to Kenny Omega at the end of Dynamite last week, why he betrayed his friend, why he took a screwdriver to the man's head. We didn't get that explanation from Don Callis. He was interrupted by the Blackpool Combat Club and by Kenny Omega and the Elite, who were joined by their old friend, Hangman Adam Page. Pirate Page made his return for the first time probably in about a month. We haven't seen him in many weeks. He was out there with the eye patch. The only thing he was missing was the bird on his shoulder. Anarchy in the Arena is now official for Double or Nothing on May 28th in Las Vegas, which I am very happy about because Double or Nothing last year had the first Anarchy in the Arena, and it was one of my favorite matches of the year. I was not expecting to enjoy that as much as I did. Considering the parties involved here in the match this year will probably be even wilder than it was last year. So I'm looking forward to that. You know what else I was looking forward to tonight? I wanted to know what kind of Falls Count Anywhere match Chris Jericho and Roderick Strong were going to put together. I love the Falls Count Anywhere stipulation. My beef is that so many times we see Falls Count Anywhere matches and they don't take advantage of the stipulation. We didn't have that issue tonight. Jericho and Roddy had a true Falls Count Anywhere match. Not just Falls Count Anywhere in the building. This was just flat out Falls Count Anywhere. In the building, out of the building. They went all over the place. I enjoyed the hell out of that match tonight. I really did. We also had the challengers for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, the Pillars, Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, all of whom were in action tonight. All of whom had different challenges, different types of matches. MJF was there. We didn't hear from him. He didn't do anything. He didn't wrestle. He never wrestles. But the other three did, and it was varying degrees of success. They were all successful, but all of the matches were different in some way. Darby Allin had a tag team match. Sammy Guevara had a quick squash. And then there was poor Jungle Boy who got busted open, bleeding against Roosh, who was basically having his way with this kid. Not exactly a dominant win for Jungle Boy, but all three of them did pick up wins as they tried to explain that they're all on the same page they realize that somebody has to take that championship from MJF at Double or Nothing. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's one of them. That's basically the story they're telling. We also had a match tonight with Switchblade Jay White and Ricky Starks, which I was surprised they even had this on the show tonight. When they announced it last week, it caught me by surprise. I figured they would hold off until the pay-per-view. They had the match tonight. Very good match. Disappointing finish, but it sure sets up a rematch, which I hope they do at Double or Nothing now, because the finish was so lame between those two. But a very good match. And honestly, when the show was over tonight, it felt like a newsworthy show. I thought this was a very good episode of Dynamite. A lot of the matches in the ring, and I guess technically out of the ring, the Falls Count Anywhere match was my favorite, but the Jungle Boy match was very strong. The Ricky Starks match was very strong. They had the big angle at the end to set up the Anarchy in the Arena match. So I thought overall this was actually a very strong show, which again is going to be overshadowed come tomorrow morning. People are not going to be talking about this show. People are probably not even going to be talking much about Collision. They're going to be talking about someone else. And that's a damn shame. This is your AEW Dynamite review for Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. I am the Solomonster. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you are new here and you are not already subbed to the channel. We would love to have you stick around. Hit the like button as well. 400 likes. If you smack that button 400 times tonight, we will do Be the Booker later on here in the stream. Super chats are open, so if you have any thoughts about today's news, if you have any thoughts about tonight's show, I want to hear from you. What did you think of this show? We'll go to the Twitter poll later and we'll see what everybody thought of tonight's Dynamite. But before we get into Dynamite, we do want to, I think we do want to start out with this. As you saw at the beginning of the stream, and they actually broke into the show tonight to break this news. It was Ric Flair who made the announcement first on Twitter that superstar Billy Graham, WWE Hall of Famer superstar Billy Graham, who would have turned 80 years old next month, passed away. I assume it was earlier this evening. He was in very rough shape for many, many months. He's been in the hospital for several months. I believe he had some sort of skull infection, and it just, his whole body seemed to be shutting down. Every update, every week sounded more and more bleak. I know he had gone deaf, and he was losing weight, and there were infection problems. You know, and this is a man who has had quite a few health issues in his day. He had a liver transplant in 2002. I think there was a young woman who died in a motorcycle wreck, if I remember correctly, and he got a new liver over 20 years ago. But his wife Valerie said in a Facebook post on Monday that he was on life support. The doctors wanted to take him off of life support, and she refused. She was holding on to hope. It just, you know, it sounded like wishful thinking, and that's what it turned out to be. You know, again, what can you really say in the span of a minute or two here about Billy Graham? He certainly was a controversial figure in recent years, some of the comments he's made, but one of the all-time greats as far as charisma, as far as promo ability, as far as his personality is concerned. Couldn't tell you a single superstar Billy Graham match that I ever saw that really stands out to me as being an all-time great, but he was an all-time great personality. His physique, right? I mean, he just had that gift of gab when it came to his promos in an era where there were just not that many people, frankly, who could pull that off and who sounded like he did. Now, he's in the same realm as guys like Dusty Rhodes. And in fact, he was an influence on a lot of those people. You know, Jesse Ventura, Hulk Hogan. These people have talked about the fact that they grew up watching superstar Billy Graham, Scott Steiners. I mean, so many other people emulated him. So think about that. Some of the biggest stars in the business, their look, their character, their persona, their promo ability, their promo style, they modeled it after this man. That's how much of an influence he was overall on the wrestling business. So you're going to be reading a lot about him and hearing a lot about him. I'm sure I will have more to say about this on the podcast coming up on Sunday. So very unfortunate news, but whatever you thought about the man, the one thing you cannot say is that he did not leave a mark on the wrestling business. He most certainly did. And they broke the mold when they made superstar Billy Graham. So condolences to his family on their loss. The news of the day was going to be whatever was announced at the Warner Brothers Discovery upfronts. The theater at Madison Square Garden is where they were held. I said it was very symbolic that there would be some big AEW announcement happening in New York City at Madison Square Garden, of all places. We just didn't know what it was going to be beyond Collision. We didn't know if they were going to announce anything about a new media rights deal, because there is going to be a new media rights deal. Whether it's with Warner Brothers Discovery or someone else, their deal is coming up in the not too distant future. So they're going to need a new media rights deal. And certainly the way that Warner Brothers Discovery has gone all in on AEW, giving them more content. We have AEW All Access that just wrapped up, right? Their big reality series. Now they're getting 2 hours of live primetime television every Saturday night starting June 17th. They wouldn't be doing that if they were not all in with this company. So clearly, if there has not been a new deal signed yet, there will be. We still just don't know the terms. We don't know the monetary figures or the years. All the talk about a potential $1 billion deal. Just because it wasn't announced today doesn't mean it still can't happen. Right? Maybe it'll be $1 billion. Maybe it won't be $1 billion. They just did not make that announcement today. But it is coming at some point because it has to. Time is ticking. Same thing with WWE, right? They're now entering into a new phase of their own rights negotiations, where I think the exclusivity window just ran out with Fox and with NBC. So now they're going to open it up to everybody, and who knows where WWE may land. Who knows how that might impact AEW's negotiations, if in fact there is no deal official yet with them and Warner Brothers Discovery. Hey, maybe Warner Brothers Discovery will swoop right in and they'll make a deal with WWE. I mean, stranger things have happened. But that's not what tonight, or today I should say, that's not what today was about. Today was about AEW Collision. And on your screen right now, you see the AEW Collision logo. And if that logo looks very familiar to you, there's a really good reason for that. There is a very good reason for that. It is a very WCW Monday Nitro-esque logo, clearly inspired by the original WCW Monday Nitro logo, which coincidentally was the best WCW Monday Nitro logo. So obviously a very similar look and a similar color scheme. But that is the logo. We already knew the date and the time and the network, right? We've been talking about this now for so long. So now that we have that bit of information here, I just want to read from you the official announcement that was made earlier today. And this is directly from the AEW website here. As we scroll down, TNT launches a second night of wrestling with AEW Collision featuring headliners. And it's interesting that they use the word headliners for Thunder Rosa, Miro, Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Andrade El Idolo on Saturday, June 17th, because practically none of these people, with the possible exception of Samoa Joe, could you call a headliner in this company. None of these men have been headliners in this company, with the exception of Joe. Joe has headlined a number of Dynamites before, but even Joe is the Ring of Honor television champion. He technically is not even a member right now of the AEW roster. But they're all headliners here for this new show. TNT launches a second night of wrestling with a new tentpole series called AEW Collision. Announced today by Kathleen Finch, Chairman and Chief Content Officer for U.S. Networks Group, Warner Brothers Discovery. During their upfront presentation at Madison Square Garden in New York City. More stories, more action, more milk, more. What other terms can we come up with here? This is the super, all the hyperbole here to try to hype up this show. In only 4 years following the launch of Dynamite, AEW's footprint has more than doubled across TNT and TBS. Along with Dynamite, Friday night's Rampage, recent series AEW All Access, and now Collision, TNT and TBS deliver the best matches and the most entertaining moments in professional wrestling today. AEW has reached 23 million total viewers so far this year across all of its shows on TNT and TBS. But the thing I want to bring up, and there's Cody. You know, Cody should take a bow, right? Cody's part of this whole thing too. He was one of the founding fathers of this company. So Cody can give himself a pat on the back for this too. But I want to scroll down here because there's a quote that I think it's very interesting from the president of the networks, this guy Jason Sarlanis, who made a comment here. He said AEW's roster of talent has expanded so quickly that we felt it needed another night to bring our audience the epic rivalries, unforgettable matches, and stars they love to watch. Adding Collision to our programming mix on TNT will allow us to satisfy the massive demand we have felt from our hardcore fan base and be the ultimate complement to Dynamite on TBS. Now, that I think is very interesting because he's singling out hardcore audience, right? We hear from a lot of people who talk about, well, how is AEW going to grow its audience if all it does is focus on their hardcore fans, right? The existing hardcore wrestling fans. And what a terrible thing it is that this company, in their view, is not creating new fans. And I agree, you want to create as many new fans as you possibly can. That was the purpose behind All Access. All Access was in part to try to attract new fans, the way that Total Divas did for WWE. Now, whether it accomplished that, I don't know. But that was one of the ideas behind that show. But the point is, this is the president of the network who's talking about the fact that, again, we are doubling down on our hardcore fan base and the type of content that they want to see. So when we see a match like we saw on television last week with Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega locked in a cage, bleeding all over each other, broken glass, barbed wire, and yeah, I know it's a turnoff for some people, and those aren't even my favorite matches either. I don't like a lot of that garbage type stuff, but this network understands that this is what this audience wants to see. The numbers for that match went way up at the end of the show last week. So they know what their audience wants, and the network is okay with it. The network allows the blood. They allow the violence. They allow the four-letter words to slip through. And it hasn't gotten them in trouble yet. This is something that Warner Brothers Discovery is embracing, and they want more of. So they gave them 2 more hours on Saturday nights. So again, if you're an AEW fan or if you're Tony Khan, I think that's an important point. You know, that the network and the company, they're on board. You know, clearly they're on board with what Tony's vision is. To go back to the logo here for a second, I do want to mention this because it is clearly a nod to the old WCW Monday Nitro logo. Since Tony Khan is so interested in adopting a Nitro-esque logo, I would love to see him adopt a Nitro-esque stage and set. The one that they used to have in the early days of Nitro. It's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite setups for a wrestling television show. It's very simple. They had a small screen, nothing giant or anything like that. They had the little ramp in the stage area with the WCW sign that was kind of off to the side. And there was just something about that setup that I always thought visually was very pleasing. I would love to see them adopt something like that for Collision. You want to differentiate these two shows? You want to differentiate Dynamite and Collision? You can do that by having a soft brand split if you want to and segregating certain talents to one show or the other. But you also, when that show goes on, you put that TNT channel on Saturday night, it needs to look different. It needs to feel different the moment you put that show on. So I hope that's something that they'll consider doing. Is not just having the same, you know, AEW stage and set that they use for Dynamite. Really change it up. You know, change it up and make it look different. That's one way they can differentiate the two. There was a poster on social media that accompanied the announcement. And I got some questions about this, so I just wanted to address it here. People were asking me, are they having separate champions on these shows? Because they featured the Trios champions, the House of Black, and Julia Hart. They were in the advertisement. FTR, the tag team champions, they were in the advertisement. What does that mean? The women's champions weren't in there. The women's champions were not featured in there for whatever reason, but they had MJF front and center, and they had Orange Cassidy, who's the international champion. And the reason for that is my understanding of it. The reason for that is the champions will be on both shows. So even if there's no official type of split, maybe it's kind of, like I said, like a soft split where there's certain talents who will primarily appear on one show over the other, the champions will be allowed to, be on either show. MJF can be on Collision. He could be on Dynamite. They're not going to do a WWE. I certainly hope that they're not going to do what WWE has done and have separate champions. WWE has now gone and created a third fucking championship. Okay, we don't need more of that. You already have your champions. And so let them go back and forth and they can appear on both shows. That's why you saw MJF and OC and some of these other people in that poster. And beyond that, I wouldn't really read into it any more than that. Conspicuous by his absence from this press release here and from that poster was CM Punk. CM Punk was conspicuous by his absence. Here's what we know about the I really don't want to spend too much time on this guy because I feel like we've already talked so much about CM Punk, more about CM Punk in the last, whatever it's been, 9 months that he hasn't even been on television. But CM Punk is believed to be on his way back to the company. And it's believed that the first location for Collision is going to be Chicago at the United Center, the same place where CM Punk debuted for AEW for the first dance. We've heard that this first edition of Collision is going to be dubbed the Second Coming, right? Well, what else would that be in regards to if not the return of CM Punk, right? We've been hearing this now from some reputable sources now for many weeks. And then this announcement comes today and there's no mention of him. And so what does it all mean? Here's what we know. What we know is that CM Punk was originally listed in the press release that was to have gone out this morning, but he was not included in the final release once it actually went out to everybody. Connor Casey of comicbook.com reached out to Warner Brothers Discovery. Sometimes, you know what? You just go straight to the source. He reached out to Warner Brothers Discovery and he was told CM Punk is not affiliated with TNT's AEW Collision. And then there was an update from Mike Johnson of PW Insider, who says, for those who have asked what happened to CM Punk, the rumor making the rounds is that Punk and AEW are once again at odds. The hell you say? Once again, the two sides are said to be at odds now over the status of the return of Ace Steel. Now, again, this is just a rumor for now. This is not confirmed. But the fact that Mike Johnson is now addressing it tells me that there may be some smoke here to this fire because, normally he's someone who typically does not just go out with the rumor of the week. Let's put it that way. So he goes on to say the belief among those we've spoken with is that Ace Steel was expected to return, which I can't believe. Just the fact that we are even talking about the possibility of this man who bit somebody coming back to the company when the issues with Punk and the Elite, among others, are still said to be simmering and unresolved. And now we're talking about the potential return of Ace Steel. We're talking about the potential return of Batman coming to AEW. It just blows my mind. So he says that the people he's spoken with claim it's in regards to Steel expected to return in conjunction with Punk next month, working behind the scenes. However, the story making the rounds in AEW backstage, so this is going around with the talent and the people who work in the company as of today, is that a decision was made that Steel would not be working backstage at the actual Collision tapings, that he would not be backstage, I guess, in the flesh, right? And clearly he loves the flesh, that he would not be backstage in the flesh. He says, as you might imagine, that left Punk and AEW on opposite sides of the discussion, which in turn led to Punk being removed from all promotional material released for the Collision series today. One person believed that MJF replaced Punk in the promotional graphic, that's the poster I mentioned, But we have not been able to confirm that with multiple sources. We do know that Impact Wrestling sources noted they had interest in bringing Ace Steel in for a tryout. And when the invitation was passed on several weeks ago, their belief was that meant he was going to AEW or to WWE. So the timing fits in that a return was on the table for Ace Steel. Time will tell if the two sides can work things out in advance of June 17th, but Warner Brothers Discovery issued a statement today to comicbook.com stating that Punk was not affiliated with Collision. And as of this afternoon, Mike Johnson says, based on what we're hearing, that would be correct. So then we go from that update to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, who had an update of his own. It says Fightful was told that there was a meeting this week between AEW and CM Punk, and it was extended to Punk that Ace Steel would have the ability to be with the company and to work directly with Punk. However, it was made clear that Ace Steel would not be permitted to be at AEW television. We have not learned specifically how Punk reacted to this outside of him not being in agreement with it. We have not been told if this is tied to Punk not being featured on the Warner Brothers Discovery materials or the statement that they made today about him not being affiliated with the brand. There were plans for an AEW camera crew to film material at Punk's home earlier today, but we have not been told if that has actually happened. So again, this day, which was supposed to be a happy day for AEW about this brand new television series, right? 2 more hours of television. Completely overshadowed now by all of this drama and all of this bullshit surrounding CM Punk, which is not all of his doing, right? All the people who are reporting on this and the rumor mongering and stuff, they're as guilty as anybody. They're as guilty as anybody for feeding the beast, right? No, there's no innocent party involved here. But again, positive news day for AEW completely fucked by drama and bullshit. And if you think this is going to be the final time that happens, think again. This is going to continue to happen over and over and over again. I've been saying it for months. Tony Khan wanted to keep CM Punk. Maybe the network wanted him to keep CM Punk. Ultimately, it was his call to make. But wouldn't it be a kick in the balls if Tony Khan was going to keep CM Punk and use him as a way to get this brand new television show that was going to be built all around him? They were literally going to build this show in a roster, a friendly roster, all around CM Punk and his friends and his buddies. Only for CM Punk, possibly, at the end of all this, to basically turn around and say, fuck you, I'm not coming back. And if that ends up happening, then Tony Khan has nobody to blame but himself. Because all of these reports about him bringing Punk back when Punk and the Elite, they were still not on working terms, and they hadn't even had a meeting yet, and apparently legally they're not being allowed to apologize to each other. This is childish bullshit. This is something that would never, ever, ever happen in WWE. The one thing I will say for Vince McMahon, he would never allow this bullshit to go down. For that reason alone, it was complete lunacy that they were going to bring this person back and build an entire show around him. And now it seems to be blowing up even more in Tony Khan's face. Now, Punk did not take this lying down. Punk went on Instagram. We have more Instagram stories. He's going to have so many stories from Instagram, he can put a book together at the end of all this. He went on Instagram, and he had a lot to say. CM Punk was very chatty. He was very chatty here on Instagram today. He said, one more before I go really quick. This was actually not his... Actually, let's start with the first message. He said, look, everyone, Brian Alvarez doesn't like it when misinformed internet trolls make up rumors about him, so please stop making up rumors and stories for clicks while Brian makes up rumors and stories for clicks, okay? He's married, for God's sake. By God, that man has a family. And then he put in parentheses, Brian Alvarez, shut the fuck up and stop talking about me, challenge day one. Then he said, friendly reminder, I have not been on television in 9 months, and you all still can't stop talking about me. Maybe stop. You'll feel better. Love, hate, it's all the same. I don't enjoy being the sole person that props up entire misinformed clickbait industry based on toxic gossip from lying sources. But what can you do? When you're the king, it comes with the crown. King of what? I don't know. And then he also said, one more before I go really quick. The parasocial relationship that some fringe wrestling fans has is unhealthy. I get the tribalism, but picking sides is silly. You don't know me. You don't know anybody else. So go touch grass. That was the message today from CM Punk. The one thing I will agree on that he said there, tribalism sucks. Tribalism is an absolute cancer on the wrestling industry. It's an absolute cancer on wrestling on social media. That he and I are 100% in lockstep agreement with, and I certainly hope everybody in the live chat can agree with that as well. We see it every day. I see it in my mentions every day. I get accused of it, right? The tribalism is very real, and it is very poisonous, and so we can agree on that. Here's what I don't understand. I just read you 2 updates from Mike Johnson and Sean Ross Sapp, right? They had more to say today about CM Punk than Bryan Alvarez did. And yet Punk chose for whatever reason to target Alvarez. Now maybe he said something on Observer Live that was apparently triggering for CM Punk. What that would have been exactly, I don't know. But he certainly didn't have as much to say about Punk today as the other 2 did. He didn't go after the other 2. He specifically went after Bryan Alvarez. He even leaked in one of his Instagram stories, he leaked an old email, supposedly, that I guess Alvarez, it looked like Alvarez sent an email to maybe some other wrestler. And he referenced Punk in this email. This email goes back over a decade. And in the email, Alvarez referenced Punk and said, if you happen to talk to him about this, and you probably won't, or if you do, Punk probably won't give a shit. I mean, there was nothing in the email that was derogatory about Punk in any way. If anything, it was actually very complimentary of him. And Punk chose, I guess, to leak the email, to leak this private email that Alvarez years ago had sent to somebody and mentioned Punk. I have no idea what the point of that was. I have no idea what that was in reference to. All I know is that it just feeds the beast. It feeds the beast. It gets people talking even more about who? CM Punk. Same thing when Punk showed up backstage at Raw all those weeks ago. Oh, he's from Chicago. Raw's in Chicago. There's nothing. You're looking too deeply into this. Even though WWE has been running Chicago for fucking 9 years since Punk left the company. At a time when people were starting to talk about Punk possibly coming back, he shows up at Raw. He's making amends with The Miz, and he wants to make amends with Triple H. As if, of course, that wouldn't leak and people wouldn't be talking about it. And I said it then. This man knows how to get people talking about himself. He's very good at it. He's very, very good at it. And if you didn't want to feed into all this stuff, and everything was copacetic, and you're just waiting for AEW to make the announcement, then you wouldn't say anything. But clearly, there is something going on here. Exactly what it is, nobody knows. But all it is, it's just more unnecessary drama. But the thing that just strikes me is the Ace Steel stuff. And if there's any truth to that, if there's any truth to the Ace Steel stuff that CM Punk wants him back, and this potential hang-up is hinging upon that, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. If that is true, then Tony Khan needs to cut his losses as far as CM Punk is concerned and finally move on. Because think about it like this. Ace Steel was the one person who lost his job because of the brawl out stuff. Because of what he did. Allegedly, what he did. He lost his job. Tony Khan doesn't fire anybody. Tony Khan rarely, if ever, fires anybody. He'll just let their contract expire. He'll ghost them, apparently, and won't say anything. And yet they fired Ace Steel. So what does that tell you? And yet they're talking about, they're even entertaining the possibility, when things are still this toxic, of bringing this guy back? Oh, well, he won't physically be there, so it'll be okay. He'll only work with this one person. What is he, his personal trainer? You can't bring that guy back. This is a powder keg. It's just waiting to explode. I couldn't even believe it. Today of all days, that we're even talking about Ace Steel is ridiculous. And to me, again, if it's true, it just shows that there's very little hope. There's very little hope in making this work. This is all a huge distraction at a time when Tony Khan does not need the drama. He didn't need the drama 9 months ago. He didn't need the drama 3 months ago, and he doesn't need the drama now. And he certainly doesn't need it next month when Collision actually debuts, and then they have Forbidden Door, and they're going to be working with New Japan. They got their big all-in show coming up at Wembley Stadium. All the talk about how, well, they need CM Punk for that show. Hey, look, in a perfect world, I'd have CM Punk on that show. You don't think I'd love to see CM Punk against Samoa Joe, or CM Punk against Kenny Omega, or CM Punk against Bryan Danielson? Of course I would. But if we've learned one thing in the last few weeks, they sold 65,000 tickets for a show without a single fucking person being announced, including CM Punk. So don't tell me, oh, they need CM Punk for that show. They don't. They don't. And if this bullshit continues, like I said, Tony Khan, he needs to cut his losses and move on. Because this isn't doing anybody any good. You've got a roster filled with really talented men and women who are looking for opportunities, and they're looking for more television time, and they have a roster with Miro and Thunder Rosa and all these people that, you know, these disgruntled employees and all these people who want more from AEW and they want more television time. You've got a roster full of talent that you can fill both of those shows with without any problem whatsoever. And you can focus on that talent, and you've got the Elite, and you've got the Blackpool Combat Club, and you've got all these different people. AEW will not wilt and die if CM Punk is not around. And it's a shame. Because were it not for all this stuff, CM Punk would help lift AEW even higher. I don't hate CM Punk. I don't. I really don't. But at some point, you have to say enough is enough. Is this that point for Tony Khan? Probably not. Next week, Tony Khan is going to let us know where that first Collision is taking place. If he announces it for Chicago, that would be a sign that everything is going to, be full steam ahead. I can't imagine they announce Chicago at the United Center if they don't have CM Punk back. My guess is we're finding out next week and not tonight, because whatever happened today, they need another week to try to smooth it all out. For his sake, I hope it happens. I don't know what else to say about this. It really is just a very big embarrassment for this company. And by the way, on top of everything else, we got the announcement tonight. I don't know if you heard about this. We got the announcement tonight that CM Punk is going to be honored in August by the Cauliflower Alley Club. CM Punk is going to be the recipient of the Mike Mazursky Award at their annual banquet. So if CM Punk, whether he comes back to AEW or not, I guess he'll be at the Cauliflower Alley event, accepting his award in August. So that is where he will be. Although I think it actually might be taking place the weekend of All In. I don't have the date of the banquet in front of me right now. But if it is, that is actually very interesting. That is very interesting if it falls on the same weekend as the Wembley Stadium show. One more thing about this Collision stuff, then we can get into Dynamite here. Andrade on Twitter, Andrade El Idolo, is one of the names announced as part of the Collision launch. First thing Andrade did when the news broke earlier, he went on Twitter and he said he had no idea about any of this news. He said he had no idea that he was being announced for a return to AEW. Apparently nobody told him. So unless he's working this into his new gimmick, where he is just chronically disgruntled here with this company, apparently he was as surprised as anybody to see that his name was mentioned there. He had surgery back in November. He tore his pec. He's been out ever since. So, I mean, it's May now. I would think that this is around the time he'd be cleared to come back. I don't know what his medical status is beyond that. Like I said, there was no mention of any sort of new media rights deal. I am still hoping there is some streaming component to this next deal that they make. One thing that is very interesting is that AEW All Access is going to be on the Max service. They're launching their new streaming service next week, May 23rd. Max is launching. And as of June 9th, AEW All Access will be archived there for people to stream. So if you want to go back and watch any of the 6 episodes from that first season of All Access that just ended, you'll be able to stream it on Max. That'll be the only AEW content as of now on Max. And it was pointed out that Roads to the Top Season 1 is already on HBO Max if you want to go there and stream it. Well, there was supposed to be a second season of Roads to the Top until Cody left. And so AEW All Access effectively took its place, which has me wondering if maybe the reason that All Access is up there on Max is because it's sort of under the same deal that Roads to the Top was under. So technically there is AEW content on there. It may not be the content that you want to watch, but it is technically on the service if you want to go watch that there. All right, so let's get into this Dynamite show here, because I have to wake up in a few hours for a business trip. I got to wake up at 5 a.m., so let's get going here. Dynamite kicked off with the TNT champion Wardlow on his way to the ring to address Christian Cage's comments from last week. He wanted Christian to come to the ring to deliver on what he promised. Christian said he would spit in Wardlow's face, and so Wardlow wanted him to come on down and do just that. Christian and Luchasaurus, they came to the ring. Wardlow dared him to spit in his face. He almost did. We've seen Christian spit in people's faces before. In fact, he spit in Randy Orton's face and ended up winning the World Heavyweight Championship one year at Money in the Bank because of it. When Orton lost his shit and basically, I think he kicked him in the balls. And that's how Christian won the world title. Such a great feud. Orton and Christian 2011, man. Great feud. So he went to go spit at him, and Wardlow stopped him. He fought off the dinosaur. He went to go give Christian a powerbomb. Luchasaurus, though, came back and broke it up. But he ate a headbutt. And Christian then gave Wardlow a low blow. Luchasaurus dragged the ladder out from under the ring. He handed it to Christian, who hit Wardlow in the face with it, with that top flat portion of the ladder right into the head. They set the ladder up against the ropes in the corner, and Luchasaurus chokeslammed Wardlow onto the ladder. It got all bent. Then they laid the ladder flat on the mat. Christian gave him a kill switch onto the ladder. Made a great loud noise. No blood. No blood. I mean, we see people. It's amazing. You watch this AEW show, and we see people bleed all the time. It's almost like you blow on their face, and the blood starts pouring, right? People are bleeding left, right, and center on this show. This guy gets hit in the head with a ladder, and then takes a kill switch, face first, down onto the ladder, and he doesn't bleed. So I just thought that was kind of funny, considering how much blood, even tonight on this show, we had blood. But Wardlow did not bleed. Wardlow was not very bright, turning his back on the dinosaur, which ultimately led to his downfall. But otherwise, I thought this was a perfectly fine opening segment, and I'm down for Christian getting the match at Double or Nothing. I thought they were going to blow it off on television, and then it would lead to Wardlow and Luchasaurus, or maybe Wardlow, Luchasaurus, and Powerhouse Hobbs in a triple threat match. But Wardlow and Christian one-on-one in a match that really is Christian's specialty, right? How many ladder matches has Christian been in over the years? In fact, I think when he won the World Heavyweight title in WWE for the first time, my memory serves, I believe it was in a ladder match against Alberto. Alberto Del Dipshit. I think that was in a ladder match. And of course, all the TLC matches. So I'm sure on commentary, they'll be emphasizing the fact that this is right up Christian's alley, given his experience in ladder matches. And while I would love to see Christian get a run at some point with the TNT Championship, it would be a killer for Wardlow for him to go in there and lose. It would be a killer for him. We had Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy, who have teamed up together recently on at least one of their live events. They've been doing some house shows. Teaming here on television for the first time against Lee Moriarty and Big Bill. No longer with the Firm, because the Firm has been deleted. Right? They lost the Firm deletion match from the Hardy compound. So the Firm technically doesn't exist anymore, yet for some reason these two are still together. So Orange Cassidy had even more tape on his body this week. He is the walking wounded, this man. So this week, not only did he have tape on his hand, he had tape also elsewhere, I think on his back. He had some of the kinesio tape. The tape on his hand was just white athletic tape. You give it a few more weeks, this guy's going to look like the Yeti in WCW. He's going to walk out to the ring like this. He's going to be all bandaged up. That's going to be, when Orange Cassidy comes out for the Battle Royal in Vegas, he's going to fucking come down like the fucking mummy from WCW. So they had quick back and forth pin attempts to start the match here from Cassidy and Moriarty. And that led to both men tagging out. Big Bill he was tossing around Darby Allin like he was a stuffed animal, just throwing this guy around. He wanted a test of strength, so Darby slapped him in the face. And then he and Orange Cassidy connected on double dives on the floor. Cassidy tried to float over in the corner, but he landed on the apron. And Big Bill connected with a big boot to take control into the commercial. Cassidy kneed his way out of a suplex attempt. He tagged in Darby. And Moriarty had taken the referee for the distraction, so didn't see the tag, right? Wasn't official. Moriarty and Big Bill, they missed corner charges. Darby made the hot tag. He ran wild. He was just throwing his body at the two of them. He tried a code red on Moriarty. Big Bill almost countered into a chokeslam, but Darby fought free to the ropes. And Darby jumped right into a boss man slam by Big Bill. After that, he took out Bill's legs. That allowed Cassidy to hit a satellite DDT. Moriarty jumped in. He applied the Border City stretch. And Cassidy escaped. This all built to huge... There was a great spot here where there was a Stun Dog Millionaire by Orange Cassidy into a code red on Big Bill. And Lee Moriarty got planted with a beach break and a coffin drop. And then Darby applied a side headlock takeover on Moriarty. And he pinned him. Pinned him with a side headlock. I like that callback to Darby's history with MJF, the whole side headlock thing. If you go back to their match from Full Gear back in 2021, I think MJF hit him in the head first with the diamond ring, but he beat Darby that way. He beat Darby with a side headlock takeover and pinned him. So I like that little callback, especially going into Double or Nothing now. He's going to be back in the ring with MJF. He's showing him that, hey, I've got you scouted. You know, little callback to their previous encounter. I enjoyed the match. I thought it was fun. I think Big Bill is being completely wasted. I don't know why, especially if the firm is no more. I don't know why he's teaming with Lee Moriarty. I guess it gets him on television, but my hope is that they're going to have this extra 2 hours of television now on TNT. He's one of those guys who hopefully can get more exposure, break away on his own. You know, he's a big man who does the big man power moves, but, you know, he can move around in there. He's not like a big lug. And I think there's definite potential in him to be doing more. So I don't really see how it's benefiting him by continuing to be in this tag team. It does nothing for him. Absolutely nothing. Alex Marvez was in the parking garage, and he was trying to get a word with the Young Bucks. And he wanted to know more about the condition of Kenny Omega after the attack at the end of last week's show. And before they could really answer the question, we saw in the background the Blackpool Combat Club. We saw Jon Moxley, we saw Claudio, and we saw Yuta. They all show up, and they don't see them at first, but then they turn around and they see them, and the Bucks act like, hey, look, we don't want to fight. And they take their suitcases and they chuck them and they try to fight them off 2-on-3. I didn't see Danielson in there. I think it was 3-on-2. They tried to fight them off, but didn't work out too well for them. They dumped Nick Jackson onto the hood of a Dodge Ram. And then they slammed Matt's injured arm. He had a brace on his elbow. Slammed, well, it's not even the elbow. He had the bicep tear that he's been rehabbing. So they slammed his arm on the truck hood. Moxley looked into the camera and said that we are the only elite in this business. So then Mrs. Moxley was elsewhere in the building. She was in the trainer's room with Wardlow, who had an ice pack on his head. Arn Anderson showed up. And he grabbed the ice pack and he threw it against the wall. And he asked Wardlow, what are you prepared to do about what just happened out there? And Wardlow said, well, I'm going to beat him at his own game. And he said, Christian, you want to pull out ladders? Then let's play with ladders. You and me, Double or Nothing TNT title in a ladder match, which made the match official. After a break, Renee was with a very tired Orange Cassidy, who they pointed out, you know, he got jumped by Kyle Fletcher of Aussie Open last week backstage. And he's one of many, she said, who wants a shot at Cassidy's International Championship. Cassidy said, if anybody wants a shot at my title, go find Tony Khan and I'll take him on a Double or Nothing. And Excalibur on commentary pointed out, he really drove home the point of how banged up he is. And they've been doing that on commentary now for many weeks. Just how, how much of a beating he's taken all of these title defenses on television, and he's all taped up, and he's always looking, half dead to the world. So this is a story that they've been telling for a while now that is building very soon to an excuse as to why he will drop his championship. One man can only take so much. Sammy Guevara. He was in action against Exodus Prime, not to be confused with Optimus Prime or Rodimus Prime from our live chat. I don't know if he's here with us right now, but shout out to Rodimus Prime. Sammy beat him quickly with the GTH. See, if Rodimus was in there, this match would not have gone this quickly. Rodimus would have at least tried to put up a fight. This was over in seconds. Beat him with the GTH. Guevara took the microphone after the match, and he cut a babyface promo, which is still very weird to me because, as far as I know, I believe he is still part of the Jericho Appreciation Society. Unless I missed something where he told Jericho, I'm going to go out on my own, he's still part of one of the biggest heel factions in this company. He is still a heel. Now, I've seen a few episodes of AEW All Access, and I know the stuff with him and Ty Mello. Sammy really is portrayed as a babyface on that show. Not on this one. That might be All Access, but that's not on Dynamite. But this was a total babyface promo here. They were in Texas tonight, and he talked about wrestling on the Texas independent scene, all the struggles that he went through. He said it all brought him to where he is today. He said he knows he's not perfect and he's made a lot of mistakes. He said the Texas fans saw him grow up in front of their eyes. They saw his mistakes firsthand. Sometimes it takes a few wrong turns to get to the right place. And the right place is double or nothing. He said he's never listened to the naysayers. He listens to his heart, which tells him that he will be the new AEW World Champion. I think he may need a heart transplant if that's what his heart is telling him. But again, noticeably pushing him as a babyface over these last couple of weeks. I am wondering if it's just for this one pay-per-view, this story they seem to be telling, where all three of the other pillars are almost coming together with this understanding. Like, all right, we may not like each other, we may not get along, but we got to beat this guy. Right? This guy's a jerk. He's a douche. We have to take that championship from him. So they're all going babyface, right? Darby's already a babyface in Jungle Boy. So Sammy, they feel like, well, we have to portray him as a babyface too, because MJF is the top heel in this company, and they have to take this belt off him no matter what. When the pay-per-view comes and goes and MJF retains, is Sammy going to go right back to being a heel? That's kind of how it feels to me, that he might just fall back into heel mode. Tony Schiavone up next was in the ring. He introduced Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, who he pronounced it as Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh. So they made their entrance, and Sanjay came out. He had two guitars with FTR's names on them. FTR ran out behind them as they were making their entrance. They grabbed Satnam Singh. They knocked him off the stage, and he went crashing through these two tables down below. So that took him out of the equation. They went after Jay Lethal. They went after Jeff Jarrett. Wheeler got in some chair shots on Jarrett. Harwood stripped Lethal out of his suit that he was wearing. So FTR were setting up for the big rig to Jeff Jarrett. All of a sudden, as they're setting up for the big rig, we see behind FTR Bald, we see a woman enter the ring. Actually, it might have been behind FTR Hair. But we see a woman entering the ring, and it's Karen Jarrett. Karen Jarrett has not been a character on AEW television, so this was effectively her AEW debut. Karen Jarrett gets into the ring, and she's posing for the crowd a little bit, and then she gets down, and she delivers a low blow to Cash Wheeler. Harwood sees this when he turns around. Jarrett then grabs him. Jeff does, not Karen. Grabs him from behind, gives him the stroke. Now we see Satnam Singh. He has recovered from his stage dive, and he is not very happy about it. So he marches, an angry giant, marching down to the ring. He gets inside, and he grabs both members of FTR by the throat, gives them a double choke slam. Lethal and Jeff hit simultaneous guitar shots on FTR, who are on their knees. So they get whacked with the guitars, smashed over their heads, and the heels pose with the tag team titles to close out the segment. I like the addition of Karen Jarrett, which is probably just temporary, I would imagine. I'm okay with it because she knows how to get heat. She plays her role very well. And I felt that way too when they had Jarrett in there with Jay Lethal against Ric Flair and Andrade in Flair's final match last year. Karen was part of those segments in the build-up to it, and she was there that night, in fact. She was, ringside for the main event. And she's very good in her role. She plays her role well. So they're going to do a Jarrett match on this pay-per-view, and it's only for a few weeks. I don't see the harm in it. Otherwise, a pretty standard angle to put some heat on the heels going into the pay-per-view. Renee was backstage after this with Darby Allin, and he did reference the headlock finish in his match earlier. He said it was a message to MJF. All of a sudden, Sammy Guevara walked in, and he said, look, I respect you. I respect Darby Allin. He said he knows Darby doesn't trust him, but I'm not going to lay down for MJF. And he says, all that matters at Double or Nothing is that MJF does not walk out with the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. And he put his fist out, and Darby said, may the best man win, and he fist bumped Sammy back. We had Toni Storm and Ruby Soho with Saraya in their corner against Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Hikaru Shida. This was originally billed as a trios match. It was going to be Britt Baker, Shida, and Jamie Hayter against all three members of the Outcasts. And then, even as early as this morning, or as late, I should say, as this morning, it was still being advertised. And then during the day, they announced that there was a change. And Jamie Hayter, due to injury, she was not medically cleared. She was pulled from the match. We got this tag match instead. She has not wrestled since April 19th. There was a match on television that did an injury angle with her and Toni Storm up against the ring steps where Toni Storm went after her arm. And she was helped to the back that night. Toni Storm was helped to the back by the trainers. She was selling her arm. So clearly this was all, even before they made the announcement later about, them doing a match at the pay-per-view. Clearly, this was all just part of the storyline. There were some people I saw online saying, now Hayter is injured. And I don't know if they just don't watch the shows week to week and they didn't know that they did an injury angle with her, but that's all this ever was. This was all just an injury angle. Shida was super over with the crowd here in Texas. Shida hit a jumping knee strike on Ruby, covered her for a 2 count, and then she hit a Falcon Arrow for another near fall. Britt Baker tagged in. She went for lockjaw, but Soho rolled onto her for a 2 count. Soho hit the no future kick and tagged out. Britt Baker put Toni Storm down, hit her with a stomp. Saraya was bickering with the referee. While that was going on, Ruby slid a can of spray paint, green spray paint, to Toni Storm, who spray painted Britt right in the face. Storm then hit Storm Zero on Britt and pinned her. Good match. And again, Shida was super over with the crowd. Not counting the match that she had on the Jericho cruise a few months ago, this was Hikaru Shida's first match on AEW television since December. And I'm not even sure that match in December was on television. That might have been a dark match or a dark elevation match. December, you'd have to go all the way back for that match. I know she goes back and forth between the States and Japan, but I don't know why it's been such a big gap since we've seen her wrestling on TV. Now, later on in the show, Renee was in the back with Toni Storm. And Toni Storm, it was mentioned that Toni Storm has won 4 matches in 5 days, which apparently is something that's never been done before here in AEW. Have they even had that many shows in 5 days? I guess they had some house shows. Maybe that's what they're talking about. So Toni Storm challenged Jamie Hayter to show up in Las Vegas and put her women's championship on the line against her. It was Hayter who beat Toni Storm to become champion. So there is history between the two of them. And Toni was very animated in laying down this challenge. She said, 4 wins in 5 days. I'm showing up and putting in the work, unlike our champion. So you show up in Las Vegas and put your title on the line. I'm surprised. I figured that they were going to save the trios match for the pay-per-view, but I'm fine with this. The two of them had a great match. Was it Full Gear? I think it was. They had a great match together last time. Renee was backstage yet again. I hope they pay her well for all of the backstage stuff. I mean, it used to be Tony Schiavone who would have to teleport back and forth for all these segments. And then finally, when they hired her, they were able to lessen his workload a little bit. And now it's her running all over the place doing these interviews. But Renee was backstage with Orange Cassidy again. And she informed Cassidy that since they last spoke earlier in the show, a few segments ago, 20 different men went to Tony Khan's office and answered his challenge for Double or Nothing. And Cassidy said, well, boy, that's a lot. He said, it's Las Vegas, right? So why don't we make it a 21-man blackjack battle royal at Double or Nothing for the International Championship. And he even offered Renee a spot in the match, and she politely declined. Well, I'll say this. If they want to get the belt off this guy without pinning him, this would be one way to do it. I don't know if they're going to do it at Double or Nothing or if they're going to wait to do it until Forbidden Door, but it seems to me like the way they've been talking about him on commentary, putting him in there in a match like this, sure feels like we're going to get a new champion to me. I can't even comment on who it would be because I don't know who's going to be in the Battle Royal. I mean, take your pick. There's a lot of really talented people on this. Right? Miro just came back, right? Apparently, they're saving Miro for Collision. I think Miro as international champion would be great. Ideally, you might want to, have him start racking up some wins first. But he's one of many, many people who would be, I think, a perfectly fine choice to take that championship away from Cassidy. Again, I just don't know who it's going to be until we know who's in the Battle Royal, which my guess is we will not know until the day of the show. And then it was Tony time. We're not talking about Tony Storm. We're talking about Tony Khan. Time to hear from Tony Khan in yet another pre-taped backstage segment. He called today one of the greatest days in AEW history. My guess is this was pre-taped before today. I don't know that I would. Today should have been one of the greatest days in AEW history. I don't know that we could call it that now. But he said today was one of the greatest days in AEW history. And he mentioned the Collision premiere for June 17th. He said after that first Collision show, they're going to be on the road in Canada, which we already knew. They have a Canadian tour coming up, followed by a return to the U.S. at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. And as for the Collision premiere next week, he said that he will tell us where that event will be taking place. Another announcement about the announcement. We have another announcement yet to come next week. We're going to have announcements every week until we get to the Collision premiere. So that announcement will be made on Dynamite next Wednesday. So the Canada dates, let me put them up here. The Canada dates were already announced. But those Saturday dates, which looked like they would have been live events, we pretty much figured, no, those are going to be Collision shows. Well, yes, they've been converted into Collision shows. So June 24th, they're going to be in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena. June 29th is a Thursday. So I guess that week they're taping Collision. That's going to be from the First Ontario Center in Hamilton, Ontario. Saturday, July 8th from the Brant Center in, hold on a second. We got Saskatchewan. Is that Saskatchewan? I believe it is. It's in Regina. Is it Regina? Regina, right? Regina. Saturday, July 15th from the Saddle Dome. And I'll get that right one of these days. Saturday, July 15th from the Saddle Dome in Calgary, Alberta. That was the site of the Canadian Stampede back in 1997. And again, July 22nd, back in the U.S. at the Prudential Center in Newark. I was expecting more out of this announcement. This was pretty ho-hum stuff. I mean, look, if you don't live and die by every little rumor, every little news article on social media and all the wrestling news websites, if you're just a very casual fan of AEW, maybe you didn't know about this Collision stuff. And this is the first time you're hearing about it. And so you find out about that and the dates, and that's enough of an announcement for you. But again, there was that quote in that press release that they put out earlier today from the president of the network talking about the hardcore wrestling fans, the hardcore AEW fan base, which is primarily, let's be honest, I mean, it's primarily made up of people like you and me. It's primarily made up of people who consider themselves to be diehard wrestling fans. And so as far as diehard wrestling fans go, This was disappointing. I mean, I thought there would be some clarity maybe on the Wembley show. I mean, again, I thought that he said he was going to have a follow-up as well. Follow-up on one of the biggest announcements in AEW history, in addition to whatever this other big announcement was going to be. So, I guess silly me for reading too much into it, but just the way that he framed it last week, I thought we were getting more than what we got here in this segment here. So again, if there really are problems with Punk and AEW, they have a week to work it out. Because he's got to go out there and make the announcement next week. If it's going to be in Chicago, I don't see how you do a Chicago show for that premiere unless you know you have CM Punk. I mean, I think at this point, you run the United Center if you have him, and if you don't, you pick a different venue, and you run somewhere else. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more that comes out this week about that whole situation. We'll know for sure by next week. Then came my favorite match of the entire night. Chris Jericho one-on-one with Roderick Strong, Falls Count Anywhere, the Jericho Appreciation Society, and Adam Cole, all of them, banned from the building. Strong attacked with chops. He was charging with forearms. I mean, Jericho did not even have his jacket off. And Roddy was just kicking his ass. He almost ran down Aubrey in the process. He was going back and forth, back and forth. So he almost got the end of Heartache Backbreaker. Jericho countered into the walls. Strong got a rope break. And both men fought into the crowd during the picture-in-picture break. One of the few picture-in-picture breaks where I tried to really focus and pay attention to what was going on here. Because I saw that they were starting to make their way up the staircase. So they brawl through the stands. Excalibur at this point delivers the unfortunate news that superstar Billy Graham has passed away, just as Chris Jericho is delivering a suplex through, I think it was a merchandise table. So he suplexes him, the table breaks, and then you, at the same time, have Taz and Tony Schiavone on commentary who were shocked by the news, and they're offering their condolences. So it wasn't the ideal timing for this, but yeah, look, it's that when you're given that responsibility to announce something like that, and you have to very quickly switch from sell mode and commentating on what you're seeing to, delivering this horrible news, it's not an easy thing to do. So this is the point in the show where they, and credit to them to break into the show and make mention of it. So this is where they made the announcement. So they continued their brawl onto the concourse, and Roddy fought back. He dumped Jericho backwards with a back suplex on top of the concession desk, where you go up to get your food and drink. He just dropped him with a back suplex on top of the desk. From there, they fought their way into a stairwell. And in this stairwell was a ledge. And I don't know how many inches it came out. I mean, it may have come out by about a foot. They had a decent amount of room on that ledge to fight. What a great fucking place, though. If you saw it, you got to kind of picture it. But great place for them to fight, teasing that maybe one of them would kind of go over the edge and fall down the stairs. So that was a great little area for them to brawl. I love shit like that. They fought their way back onto the concourse, and Roddy threw ice cream in Jericho's face because they brawled over where they had, I don't know if it was an ice cream float or what it was, but he threw ice cream in Jericho's face. Jericho, he looked like something out of the first Ghostbusters movie when the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man exploded and everybody was just covered in marshmallow goo. So he had that all over his face. And at the same time, Tony Schiavone begins to mark out for Mr. Softy. I mean, this guy was so happy to see this ice cream all over Jericho's face. Jericho then walks over. He's practically blind, right? He can't see where he's going. He's got the long hair. He's covered in white shit all over his face. There's a visual for you. His face is covered in white shit. And he goes over to a garbage can. And I'm hoping that this was a planted garbage can. He reaches into the garbage can and just grabs, it was some kind of paper that was on top to wipe the ice cream off of his face. That seems very unwise to me. So I'm hoping that they had planted that there for him, because otherwise I don't know why you would do that. So they ended up then outside the arena, and Roddy is like begging off. Now he's the baby face, right? The baby face doesn't beg off. So right away you can tell, okay, something's up here, right? And you start putting two and two together, and you realize that, wait a minute, the stipulation was that Adam Cole was banned from the building. Well, now they're outside the building, and sure enough, there you see behind Jericho in the background, there's Adam Cole. And Chris Jericho has no idea, and he's yelling at Roddy, and he's talking trash. Then he turns around, and he sees Adam Cole. Adam Cole attacks Jericho. Since the rule no longer applies, he can attack Jericho, beats the crap out of him. And he delivered the last shot to the back of Jericho's head as Jericho was on his knees on this dirt mound. And Roddy covered Jericho and pinned him to win the match. I love this match. I really did. I love this match because finally someone lived up to the stipulation. A real Falls Count Anywhere match. So many times, especially in WWE, I've seen these Falls Count Anywhere matches where, yeah, they'll brawl up the staircase into the crowd. Maybe they'll go in a little backstage area, and then it's right back out to the ring. They don't take full advantage, right? How many times do they really brawl out of the building anymore? You know what I mean? Like, not very often. Not very often. So they took full advantage of it. And what this reminded me, I think this is one of the reasons I like this. It reminded me a lot of the Chris Benoit, Kevin Sullivan Falls Count Anywhere match from Great American Bash in '96. The only thing it was missing was Dusty Rhodes on commentary freaking out at the sight of there being a woman in the men's bathroom. I will never forget that for the rest of my life. I will never forget that as long as I live. I could hear it in my head right now, Dusty's commentary. He was so just blown away by this, that there is a lady in the men's bathroom. But I love that match. That was just 10 minutes of pure chaos between those two. This reminded me of that in a way. And I also love how the babyface outsmarted the heel. I talk about dumb babyface syndrome on these wrestling shows. No dumb babyface here. Roddy lured him into a trap. Adam Cole was there waiting for him. And it paid off in the end. So I like how the babyfaces came out of this looking smarter and not looking dumb the way so many other babyfaces, like Wardlow in the opening segment of the show, look stupid when these segments are over. So this was good shit. We had Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, one-on-one against Roosh. William, have you never seen the match with Benoit and Sullivan? You gotta hop on Peacock and watch that, man. You gotta hop on there right now when we're done here and go watch that match. So Jungle Boy against Roosh. Roosh wasted no time going after Jungle Boy right at the bell. And Jose, the assistant, was out there with him. He pulled a cable cord out from under the ring. Roosh was he was kicking this guy's ass. He was throwing him headfirst into the barricade. So this led to Jungle Boy being busted open. He was busted open pretty badly. And he never even got out of the gate by the time they got to the commercial break. He tried to fight back with a comeback lariat. Roosh had that scouted. So then Jungle Boy delivered a chop. And then there was kind of an odd moment here where he went for a cup check. Right in front of the referee, he grabbed Jungle Boy by the balls. You've ever been to the doctor before? Right? The doctor sometimes he'll grab it and go cough. Maybe he was playing doctor in this match. I don't know. But the referee just stood there and stared. I don't know. Maybe he liked it. I don't know. He stood there and watched as this took place. So a little bit later on, Jose is out there, and Jose grabs Jungle Boy's leg, again in front of the referee, who does nothing. So Jungle Boy ducked a charging Roosh, and he was able to lock on the snare trap. Roosh managed to make it to the ropes. Both men ended up on the apron. Roosh had the blood from Jungle Boy's face. He was licking it. He was licking the blood, which is just fucking disgusting. Jungle Boy charged at him, and Roosh hit an overhead belly-to-belly suplex to the floor. And the people reacted big time to that. He's lucky he didn't land on his head. He tried fighting back, did Jungle Boy, but he was just getting wrecked in there. This is a guy who's in the World Championship main event coming up on this pay-per-view. So, again, it was a little odd to see him in there struggling so much when Darby Allin didn't struggle this much. And Sammy Guevara didn't struggle at all. He had a throwaway match on this show. He had a job match on this show. Jungle Boy didn't have a night off. Jungle Boy, he was fighting for his life in there. And maybe they're trying to tell a story here as far as the different pillars and what they've gone through to get to this point. I mean, Darby and Jungle Boy have been pretty similar as far as, having some tough challenges. But certainly for tonight, Jungle Boy, he must have pulled the short straw. Because he barely survived. He survived. He didn't even win this match. He survived this match. He got the win with a schoolboy into a flash pin. I think he may have had the trunks. Not a very convincing win for somebody who's challenging MJF in I think, 2 weeks? Less than 2 weeks now? After the match, Preston Vance, Jose, and Roosh, they all attacked Jungle Boy until Darby Allin hit the ring. He found himself being choked out by that cable cord that Jose had brought out earlier. Sammy Guevara made the save. He took Roosh out on the ramp. Darby took out Jose with a Scorpion Death Drop. Preston Vance got wiped out by Sammy and Darby. And all three challengers for the AEW World Championship were standing tall, staring each other down to close out this segment. A good match. Again, a little strange as far as the Jungle Boy booking. I guess they just want him to fight through adversity before he gets to this match, but it certainly was not an easy time for him compared to the other two on this show. And again, those moments with the referee, this is a recurring problem in a lot of these AEW matches. There are moments like that where the referee is in full view of something that should not be happening and should not be allowed. And you can't lean on the fact anymore that, AEW doesn't do disqualification. They did one tonight. They've leaned into the disqualification a little bit more. There's a lot of moments like that where the referees are just made to look incredibly stupid. With some of these spots that they do in these matches. This was another example of that. So Renee was in the back. She approached MJF, who was watching this all play out, right? He saw the three pillars standing tall, staring each other down in the finale of that previous segment. She goes over to MJF. She wants to know how he's feeling ahead of the championship match coming up at Double or Nothing. MJF says nothing. He looks pissed. He smacks the microphone out of her hand and he walks away. Very rude. That's the most we got out of MJF tonight. I said the word adversity, so everybody is thinking now of the rubber chicken. Yeah. Poor Cody. Poor Cody. I look like the smartest man in the room every day that goes by. Every day, I feel so validated and vindicated after the shit that I got after night 2 of WrestleMania. Every day that goes by, I look smarter and smarter. So we had Ricky Starks one-on-one against Switchblade Jay White. This was the second best match on this show tonight. The Jericho match I enjoyed the most. This one I enjoyed the most after that, except for the finish. But I think the finish was done the way it was for a reason. Starks fired out of the corner with a lariat, hit a Manhattan drop, charging knee and a back elbow. Jay White charged right into a belly-to-belly suplex and a tornado DDT for 2. It took Ricky too long, though, to follow up. Jay White draped Ricky over the top rope, followed with a huge Uranage for a near fall. Jay White was signaling for Blade Runner, but Ricky elbowed free until Jay suplexed him over the top rope to the floor. Back inside, Ricky almost got a quick roll-up for a near fall. Follow that with a snap neck breaker. Ricky hit a misdirect slam that almost got 3. It was a very close near fall. Juice Robinson was outside in Jay White's corner. He tripped up Ricky long enough for Jay White to try Blade Runner. Starks, though, got a roll-up for 2. Jay White gouged the eyes of Ricky at another point when Ricky got him up for the Rochambeau. So the referee is reprimanding him for that. While that's going on, Juice Robinson grabs a chair, and he gets into the ring. He takes a swing and tries to take Ricky's head off, almost does. Ricky ducks it. He gets possession of the chair, and he ends up hitting Jay White in the midsection with it, and then smacks him across the back with it, and that got him disqualified. So Jay White, still undefeated in this company, picks up the DQ win. Disappointing finish to what I thought was an otherwise strong match. I enjoyed the match itself. It was good to see how how with Ricky the crowd was for some of those near falls in the latter stages of the match. Again, I'm not impressed by the booking of Ricky Starks ever since that Jericho feud. It just feels like, even though Jay White, I still look at Jay White as a pretty big star. Ricky had a lot of momentum going into the Jericho stuff, and he came out of the Jericho feud with a win. But again, it feels like he has been knocked down a couple of notches. It's just they're not focusing on him as much as I would like to see them focus on him. So if there is going to be a benefit to having that extra 2 hours of television, I'm hoping that he and Powerhouse Hobbs, among others, can be the beneficiary of that. Because I just have not been impressed with the booking of Ricky Starks. Very good match. And clearly, with this finish, they can't leave us hanging like this. I hope they run this back. I'm expecting them to run this back. Maybe with a stipulation. Although I don't think it needs one at Double or Nothing. Because I was surprised they even announced this for television. I figured they would just save it for Vegas. So they have to run this back. And the closing segment was Tony Schiavone introducing us to Don Callis. Came down to the ring as Don Callis was making his way down. They had on the screen behind him, they were replaying the callous actions of Don Callis. You see what I did there? The callous actions of this man at the end of the show last week when he betrayed Kenny Omega. So they're replaying that. On either side of the aisle, they have a line of security people. And then once Callis got into the ring, all the security people were guarding the ring to prevent Kenny Omega, I guess, or anyone from the Elite from getting involved. So he said he wanted to talk, but he didn't want to talk about what he did to Kenny Omega, but rather what Kenny Omega did to him. Because you see, he is the real victim here. He says, after all he did for Kenny, IWGP champion because of him. Tokyo Dome against Chris Jericho because of him. When he won the AEW World Championship for the first time, that was him. At this point, we hear Kenny Omega's entrance music. Kenny comes out on stage, and of course he sees all the security blocking his path, and he decides to try to plow through all of them, and he starts, but then he gets jumped from behind by the Blackpool Combat Club, including Bryan Danielson. I didn't see if Danielson got physical or not, but he was out there this time. It was all four members of the BCC. Moxley gave him a paradigm shift on the ramp. Moxley, Danielson, Claudio, and Yuta, they all came down to the ring. Callis disappeared. We never saw Don Callis. We never heard from Don Callis again. We don't know if he's affiliated with the Blackpool Combat Club in any way. My guess is no, not officially. But we still have not gotten the explanation from Don Callis. Although I'm pretty confident we're going to get that explanation from Don Callis long before we ever get an explanation from Brock Lesnar about why he attacked Cody Rhodes. I can almost guarantee you we will get the explanation from Don Callis before we ever get that. But tonight was not that night. So Moxley warned Omega. He told Kenny, stay down. He said, we are the Elite. The Young Bucks music played. They limped out with a garbage can filled with weapons. So they each grabbed a weapon. Nick Jackson grabbed a 2x4. Matt Jackson grabbed a pipe to use as a weapon, not a different kind of pipe. Kenny Omega grabbed the trash can lid. And then Hangman Adam Page's music hit to a big pop. And out came the cowboy in a leather jacket with an eye patch. He was out there looking like Snake Plissken, only not as cool. And the Elite handed him a broomstick, because nothing says cool like a fucking broomstick. But all four of them now have weapons, and they charge the ring. They beat up the heels. It ended with the Bucks delivering a BTE trigger to Yuta. Yuta then ate a buckshot lariat from Hangman. Hangman grabbed the microphone. He shouted, we are the heart, the soul, and the spirit of this place. We are the Elite. So run and hide while you can, because at Double or Nothing, it's the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club. Anarchy in the arena. Everybody cheered. This is a great angle. Predictable outcome as far as the match. I figured it was probably going to be Anarchy in the arena because last year's went so well. They did it for the first time last year. And it ended up being, and I did not think it would be, but it ended up being one of my favorite matches of the entire year. When I did my top 15 countdown at the end of 2022, I had that at number 8 on my list of favorite matches for the entire year. See, that's probably the spot that on this year's list will end up going to like Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. You have those matches that are just so entertaining. It's like a sports entertainment match, but it's just so fucking fun that you can't help but rank it. So I'm glad they're bringing it back. Last year's was a lot of fun, and when you consider who's involved in this one's going to be probably pure insanity this year, given who's involved. So we still need to hear from Callis. I'm looking at this and I'm saying no explanation yet, although there's still another week or two to get one. So we know the first match is going to be Anarchy in the Arena. Is that where Konosuke Takeshita returns? Does he help the Blackpool Combat Club beat the Elite? Is that the next swerve that we're in for, where we find out that he's basically accepted Callis's invitation because Callis has been recruiting him for months very quietly? Does he show up? Last time we saw him, he was busted open by the Blackpool Combat Club. I could see Takeshita getting involved at Double or Nothing and helping the Blackpool Combat Club to a victory because they should win. If they're going to run it back and do a second match and do Blood and Guts in June or July, then the Blackpool Combat Club, the heels, have to go over in this first match. There has to be a reason for the Elite to want to fight their way back to beat these guys again. And so I could see Takeshita being on the side of the heels. That would then pave the way for the Elite to bring in Kota Ibushi. We've heard about Ibushi has flat out said number one priority for him is AEW and the Golden Lovers. He said this last week. Well, the stage is set. The path is very clear. If he wants to come in, and I'm sure Tony Khan would love to have him, and Kenny would love to bring him in, there you go. 5-on-5, Blood and Guts. Takeshita on one side. Who's the fifth man on the babyface side? Kota Ibushi. It's all right there. So I enjoyed the closing angle. I enjoyed the show overall. It was a very good episode of Dynamite. Rampage on Friday night. I'm sure it's not in its normal time slot because this show has just been completely decimated for 6 weeks now. It's been. I can't remember the last time Rampage aired in its normal time slot, but I believe it is airing on Friday. We have Moxley, Claudio, and Yuta taking on Best Friends and Bandito. We'll hear from the Hardys. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn take on the Varsity Athletes and Ari Daivari. Jade Cargill open challenge for the TBS title. And Bishop Cone battles Dustin Rhodes. Dynamite next week has a Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship match because when Claudio beat Rey Fenix last week, it was a double jeopardy match, so the loser would have to defend his championship against the winner. Rey Fenix is one half of the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Claudio and Yuta will be challenging Penta and Phoenix for the belts on Dynamite next week. Why we're doing a Ring of Honor Tag Team title match on Dynamite when they have a Ring of Honor television show, don't ask me. I'm not the one who booked it. I'm sure it'll be a fun match, but does it make sense? No, it doesn't. Not when there's supposed to be a real separation now between these brands. And you have a weekly Ring of Honor television show. I don't know why this is on Dynamite, but it is. Here's a Twitter poll. 78.5% thumbs up for tonight's show. 21.5% thumbs down with over 800 votes in so far. Go ahead and vote at Solomonster. You'll see the lightning bolt. That means it is the official account. It is yours truly. So that is where you can go to vote. I also want to just point out that I will not be doing the SmackDown stream on Friday night. I mentioned this on Monday. House of Glory duties are calling upon thee. We'll be back on Fight TV doing commentary as well. House of Glory, beware the fury. Matt Cardona, the indie god, coming in to challenge Jacob Fatu for the House of Glory World Championship. A little countdown there in the middle. Time is ticking down. You can order the show on Fight. A lot of great matches. Motor City Machine Guns are coming in as well. A lot of good shit on that show. But that is where I will be on Friday night. So the next time I'll be live with you will not be until next Monday for Monday Night Raw. So just be aware of that. We'll be hanging out next Monday talking about Raw. Lightning Bolt, yeah, I don't have a blue check mark on Twitter. I don't pay for no check marks on Twitter. So, unless Mr. Musk wants to gift me a check mark, but unfortunately, check marks on Twitter, they don't mean shit anymore. Everybody's got one, so they don't mean shit anymore. So I said, you know what, we'll go with a lightning bolt, because I think it's cool. T. Whitley. We'll start with T. Whitley. Kicking us off here with the Super Chats. We've got buy or sell on the Better Heel promo. HBK 05 in Montreal or Hollywood Rock 03 in Toronto. What does HH Rock mean? I mean, is it Hulk Hogan Rock 03? Or are you talking to Hollywood Rock? Because that one was great, but we'll go with HBK in Montreal. Bryce, thank you for the $10, Bryce. I appreciate that very much. Dorian Moore, match we got robbed of. Strong against Gable. Yeah, Roddy was dead the minute he ever hit the main roster. Under Triple H, he would have fared a little bit better, but Roddy was never going to have much success on the main roster in WWE. Tyler, rest in peace, superstar Billy Graham. Talked about him earlier. Naughty Delicious Chicken with Flavor. Says, F it, let the Civil War happen. Team Dynamite against Team Collision. Which wrestling content is stronger for the audience? Hey, Michelle Mills just gifted 5 channel memberships. I want to thank her, and I want to thank all of the others. I did see it. I just did not acknowledge it as it was happening earlier. I know we got other gifted memberships as well. So thank you to everybody who's gifted memberships tonight. He also says the roster is getting too big. The wrestling politics is getting out of control, and big egos need to separate since some people cannot work together. Welcome to the wrestling business. Tony Khan, he says, needs to hire 2 bookers, 1 for Dynamite, 1 for Collision. Tony Khan's booking mojo is declining. Well, Tony Khan is booking all of the shows. He's going to continue to be the lead booker, apparently, for all 3 shows. I hope he gets enough sleep. Oz and Glorious with the $5 super chat. Beyond glad to see Jay White in the main event, plus having a week off from the JAS and QTV was pure bliss. The Hangman return was such a great moment. Let's fucking go. A Bliss fan, I love those emojis. I love seeing that. Old Dirty Sausage. 2 weeks in a row of great AEW Dynamites. My only complaint is more tag team wrestling. Tony Khan. Hopefully on Collision, maybe. You know, I have to say, WWE has really made a little quiet effort to kind of flip the script on the tag team division as compared to AEW. I feel like the WWE tag team division has caught up with and might actually be better. Might actually be stronger at this moment as a whole than the, not counting trios, just the tag team division in AEW. And the tag team division in AEW used to be stacked, easily the best tag team division in all of wrestling. Doesn't feel that way anymore. It's like WWE, the pendulum has swung in the other direction. Rob G, New York Rangers fan, all in on the Florida Panthers. Frankie Rodriguez, do you feel like Wheeler Yuta is getting a bit stale in the Blackpool Combat Club? If you could replace him, who would fit in better? Samoa Joe. It's not going to happen, but Samoa Joe would fit in better. Yeah, Yuta basically is kind of their whipping boy at this point. He was the one who took the BTE trigger. He was the one who took the buckshot lariat. And I guess you kind of need somebody in there who can be the whipping boy sometimes. It's not going to be Moxley. It's not going to be Danielson. It can't be Claudio. He's your Ring of Honor World Champion. So, again, it kind of falls on Yuta to be the one to take the abuse. The Mount Vernon kid, Christopher Bennett. Hey, Solo, I wasn't a fan of how they booked Jungle Boy tonight. Everybody else looked worthy to be in the upcoming main event. However, Jack did not. Yeah, I agree. It was very weird, but I know what they were going for. I don't necessarily agree with how they did it. You know, they wanted him to bleed and to struggle. But, you know, him to have Roosh, and I like Roosh, but to have Roosh take 85% of the match and then have Jungle Boy win on a roll-up flash pin is not the way I would be booking my challenger for the World Championship on my paper. So I agree with that. That was not the way to handle that. Nick Grasso with the 1999. Just want to say rest in peace, superstar Billy Graham, and your thoughts on the latest drama surrounding CM Punk. We talked about that at the beginning of the stream. First 40 minutes, in fact. So I hope I answered all your questions, Nick. Tuxedo T. Servo with the $10 super chat. Was replaying the Don Callis entrance and interview when my cat yacked up a hairball, proving that even cats know when a carny piece of shit when they see one. Cats are weird. Yeah, when I had my cat, I could tell before she was about to vomit. I could hear it before it happens. You get that kind of warning period. You hear that noise, you know. It's about 3 or 4 seconds of that, and then, of course, it's on the rug. Always on the rug. Arabian Night 2000. Never knew Roosh, Dralistico, and Dragon Lee are brothers. I've mentioned that on the show before. Yeah, indeed they are. Callios, will CM Punk ever behave at this point? He is who he is. That is not going to change. Manic Game Magician, is Sal O the Monster in Be the Booker? Britt sucks. Sal O the Monster is not in Be the Booker. He is in Sound of Gamer. He has, unlike WWE, I enforce a strict brand split. So he is exclusive to Sound of Gamer. He's not allowed to appear anywhere else. GM46 with the $5 super chat. What do you think of the Legend of Zelda series? And do you know of the new one that came out last week, Tears of the Kingdom? Cody is a big Zelda fan. I know my brother got it for Switch. I have not played a Zelda game since the first one on the NES, and I never beat the first one. To this very day, it still gnaws at me. Like, I beat Super Mario, I beat Sonic the Hedgehog, like all those old classic Nintendo and Genesis games. I never beat the original Legend of Zelda. Bugged the crap out of me. Bryce, thank you for the super chat. Lady Fire Panda, thank you for the $20, almost $21 super chat. Guess this breaks my streak because this is the only super chat I'm sending tonight, but just wanted to say rest in peace to Superstar Billy. Daniel Parker, the $9.99. Was it just me or did anyone else catch a scare when Roosh belly-to-belly Jungle Boy off the apron? Way too close to landing on his head. Gave me the Big E scares. Yeah, he's very lucky. He's very lucky he arched over just in time because it was heading in a bad direction. You're definitely not the only one. There's Jera Hogan. Jim Hockenberry with the $4.99. Thank you, Jim. Also says, another $4.99, says AEW dropped the ball. Collision should air at 6:05 Eastern Saturday nights only on the Superstation TBS. Well, I don't think it was their decision on which network it aired on, but I agree with you. See, I see a lot of people comparing this thing. Oh, it's great. It's just like back in the day when WCW Saturday Night was on. No, it's not, because WCW had it right. WCW aired at 6:05, which meant that you could watch WCW while you ate dinner. The show's over at 8 o'clock. And now you can go out, you can go hang out with friends or your girlfriend or whatever. Now the show goes from 8 to 10. And then if you're going to stream it, the review, you go live at 10, your whole night is fucked. You should have gone the WCW route with it. 6:05 to 8:05, or 6:05 to 8 p.m. People have lives. Sometimes people want to go out. Sometimes people have plans. It's Saturday night, for God's sake. It's not the same thing. Naughty Delicious. If Vince McMahon handled the brawl-out situation, everyone would either get fired or have to eat poop. I like the taste of it as punishment. It's the one thing I will say. Vince McMahon never would have tolerated this shit. He would have put the fucking kibosh on this on day one. This would not have lingered as long as this has. I think he learned from the Brett Shawn stuff in 97, which frankly, I think he encouraged. I think he kind of egged them on because he liked creating that kind of drama with some of his top stars. Probably thought it brought the best out in both, brought the best and the worst out in both of them. But I think he learned his lesson after that. And there's no world I can envision where he would tolerate something like this. Lazy Booking says Saturday night is where Solo parties. Actually, Saturday night is usually where Solo is struggling to wrap up all the work he has for the podcast on Sunday, which is why I'm pissed that now I have more work on top of that. But that's true. I mean, that's what people do, man. They go, I mean, Friday night is a bad enough night as it is for a lot of people. Now you're asking people to stay in and watch the show on Saturdays. It's a lot to ask. Bryce, thank you. Daniel Parker. Orange Cassidy needs to drop the championship, but not in yet another battle royal, but to the Redeemer, just destroying him. No offense to Orange Cassidy. Boots, is Orange Cassidy the fifth pillar? They're certainly booking him like it. They're booking him as like the number two pillar behind MJF, pretty much at this point. The whole building is going to fall down if you take the pillar out of the equation here. The whole building is going to tilt. Silver Tower, tell the snowman that we want AEW shows in British Columbia. I will let him know. I will personally deliver that message to him myself. William, with the $10 super chat. Bret Hart against Tiger Mask, July 30th, 82. Was in my YouTube feed. I was struck by Bret Hart wearing gray, not the pink and black. And you recommend any other notable Hart New Japan or Stampede bouts? Thank you. He had some great ones with Dynamite Kid, and I think ladder matches with him there, if I'm not mistaken. So go find any of those Bret Dynamite matches from Stampede. That's where that spot comes from, the suplex out over the top rope, where you're by the ropes, you do the vertical suplex, and both men go tumbling over. First time I ever saw that, and I didn't see it obviously until many years later. I didn't watch Stampede when I was a kid. But the earliest match I ever remember seeing that in was a Bret Hart Dynamite Kid match. So, I mean, unless that was something people were already doing in Japan or something, those two may have innovated that spot. They innovated a lot of stuff back then. Near says, you're the man. Thank you for your support. Near is going through a tough time right now, family-wise. There's some stuff going on, so Near is a member of our little family here, so you could spare him some positive vibes, send some good energy his way. He could really use it right about now. Dr. Scorpio, I did not refresh the stream, and I thought we were stuck on 59 likes this entire time. Silly me. Yeah, that would be pretty embarrassing if we were stuck on 59 the whole time, but we've already broken the Be the Booker goal, so we'll do that in a second here. We have Dr. Devin from NJ. What would happen if a WWE producer told Solomonster that he needs to fix his attitude? Solomonster would no longer be working for WWE, because Solomonster don't need that stinking job. I'm not going to tolerate that shit. I'd have to really badly want to work there to tolerate bullshit from somebody who I don't like. Naughty Delicious says Blackpool Combat Club needs new members. The mighty don't kneel. United Empire, and just 5 guys are way more legit than the Blackpool Combat Club. Arabian Night, which recent signing do you wish went to WWE? Jay White or Bandito? If I had complete faith and trust that Vince McMahon would not have input into his booking, I was looking forward to seeing Jay White go to WWE. It's too bad it didn't work out that way. Solomonster would walk out. Yeah, that's right. I would pull a Sasha and Naomi. I'd be out of there. I'd put my belt on the desk. I'd say adios, and I'd be out of there. Not taking shit from nobody. And Nick Grasso, are you all caught up with the Yellow Jackets show? And who are your favorite characters? Mine are Natalie and Misty, both teen and adult versions. I am all caught up on Yellow Jackets. Yes, it is currently in its 2nd season. I guess there's been 7 episodes so far this season. I'm actually going to catch up on episode 7 tomorrow at some point. As far as favorite characters, later, the kind of current version of Misty. And I don't know. There aren't that many likable characters on this show. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. There's not too many likable characters on that show, but it's a great show. I am enjoying what I have seen so far. So there you go. Thank you for the super chats. Appreciate it. Made it out of there unscathed from the super chat section. And as I mentioned before, we did hit our goal tonight for Be the Booker, so thank you for getting us over the finish line there. I appreciate that very much. And on that note, it is time to be... It is time for Brie mode.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to Be the Booker.
It's always time for Brie mode. Hey, Yukio Rules, thank you very much. Says keep up the great work. I appreciate that. Let's kick things off here with the men's match. This is the final stream of the week, so we have to try to end on a high note. Begin with Solo Sikoa. I like guys that are named Solo. Some of my favorite wrestlers are named Solo. Of course, he's the only one right now that I know with that name, but Solo Sikoa, the enforcer of the bloodline, getting a big push right now. Solo Sikoa, one-on-one with tired Mike Tyson. How tired he is. How bored he is. Mike Tyson, I mean, come on, man. This is Double or Nothing. They're one of their big annual pay-per-views. Look how bored Mike looks. It's no wonder he made that comment on his podcast a few months ago. Said that he'd rather do something with WWE even if Tony Khan paid him more money. It was quite the burn. Now I can see why. But see, I got to give it the bell because you got the enforcer against the enforcer here. I mean, you got Mike Tyson and Solo Sikoa. Come on, man. I can't give the buzzer to that. I hope Mike gets some sleep, though. Looks very tired. All right, on the ladies' side, we begin with former women's champion, the innovator of the women's revolution, Stephanie McMahon, the former CEO, briefly CEO of WWE. She didn't last too long. Once her father came back, she said, peace out. I'm done here. Stephanie McMahon one-on-one with Nikki Ash. No, thank you. Keep that off my television. Thank you very much. We're moving on. Moving on to the tag teams. I love some good tag team wrestling. And we start out with one of the greatest tag teams of all time. The greatest tag team in Ring of Honor history. 13 times. Jay and Mark, the Briscoe brothers, got to call their final match. That's one of those things I never thought I would say. It's terrible that I can sit here and say that, but I did get to call their final match ever, which happened in House of Glory. Briscoe's going to be taking on Roppongi Vice. I mean, it's a Briscoes match. Come on. You didn't think I was going to give them the buzzer now. Come on, I mean, really. Be serious. Briscoes match. If Briscoes are in the ring, it's going to be a good night. Reach for the sky, indeed. Arabian Night 2000. What do you think is the most underrated ladder match people do not talk about? Personally, the Ziggler-Harper match in 2015 was amazing and very violent. That was a very stiff match. I think that was the TLC pay-per-view. Was it not? I think that might have been TLC in 2015. That's actually a good choice. I don't know that I would have thought of that one, but that one might be my answer as well. Now, a lot of the matches I'm thinking of right now are pretty well regarded. I don't think that they're underrated. You know, obviously people are going to talk about Shawn and Razor. They're going to talk about the TLC matches. Jericho Benoit from Royal Rumble in 2001 is another favorite. Jericho and Shawn Michaels from No Mercy in 2008. And there have been some great, Money in the Bank ladder matches as well. But again, I wouldn't call any of those underrated. I think those got the amount of attention they deserved. But the Ziggler and the Harper one, that's a good one. That's a very good one. You know what? Maybe I will throw one in there. The Cody and Sammy one. Before Cody, that might have been Cody's last match, actually, in AEW. The match they had for the TNT Championship on Dynamite, that was a crazy match. So I want to show some love to that match as well. Boney, is there still heat between AJ and Paul Heyman? I don't know. You'd have to ask AJ. I have no idea. And Naughty Delicious says, Stephanie against Nikki Ash. Loser has to cook breakfast for everyone in the chat. You said it, not me. Well, I mean, as long as they're not cooking any Naughty Delicious chicken, they're not going to jack your gimmick, and I think we're good. Undertaker Jeff Hardy is another one. Yeah, but again, Undertaker Jeff Hardy is still talked about to this day. I think that gets just about the right amount of love that it deserves. Maze, who's been a channel member for 23 months. Maze has a red skull in the chat. 1 month shy of 2 years. He's going to a con this weekend that'll feature Sergeant Slaughter and Demolition. I will try to get you shout-outs. Yeah, please do. I got to interview Demolition as part of WrestleCon about 6 or 7 years ago, which was very cool for me because Demolition is my all-time favorite tag team. Now, I grew up with them, watching them. And to be able to interview them for a few minutes was very cool. It's a crime they're not in the Hall of Fame. I know why. I think it's very petty and very stupid. But yeah, by all means, if you think you can, go for it. I'd play it here on the stream. TLC 3 is underrated, says Winston. Well, you know why that is. You know why that doesn't get a lot of, I don't want to say love, because it is a really good match, but TLC 3 is one of those matches you will never hear spoken about on television ever again. One of the greatest matches in Monday Night Raw history was a tag team match with Austin and Triple H against Jericho and Benoit, and it will never be talked about. Never be talked about again. It's too bad. Yeah, Chris, your skull is gold. If you hover over the skulls in the chat, it will tell you. I think it will tell you either how many months or what the different levels are. I forget if the gold. I think the gold is the highest one. I forget. It's either the red or the gold. You're special either way. Anyway, thank you guys very much for hanging out with me here on the Dynamite stream. We covered a lot of news, a lot of stuff up front here on the stream that, frankly, I wish we didn't have to cover. I really do. But we dove into that. We'll wait and see what more comes out in the days ahead. I'm sure I'll be talking more about the Collision and CM Punk stuff on the podcast on Sunday, and we'll get more information in the next few days. Please go ahead and leave a like on this video if you have not already done so. It does help the video out when you do that. And go back and check out the new Sound Off Gamer episode. Episode 7 is up right now. Again, it's about an hour long. We are finally making our way back to WWE. We had a little invasion in the latest episode. Shawn Michaels won't hire me back, so I had to take matters into my own hands. So go check out the episode. I think you'll enjoy it. Boots, thank you for the $2. Your thoughts on Khan's Ring of Honor show on Honor Club. I watched the first few episodes and I thought the wrestling was good, but I'm not keeping up with it week to week. There's nothing about the show that's must see right now for me. And with all the other wrestling and all the other stuff I have going on now, Collision, it's just not a priority. So I can only tell you from what I've seen, it was good, but it was not enough to keep me watching consistently every week. It's one of those shows where I miss a week or two and, it's not that big of a deal. So I catch it when I can. Keyshawn Johnson with the $1.99. Austin against Undertaker 1997 is underrated. Are you talking about what pay-per-view is that? May. It was May of 90. Was that Cold Day in Hell? Was that Cold Day in Hell, May of 97? I love the finish of that match. That finishing sequence of that match was fucking great. Austin comes off the ropes. Undertaker scoops him up for a tombstone. Falls backwards. Austin's got him in position for a tombstone. Then he falls backwards. Undertaker gets him in position for a tombstone. Drops him right on his head. The building is shaking if you go back and watch the finish of that. And we've seen other people now do that spot multiple times, but at the time, I just remember thinking, man, what a fucking great spot that was. Then the Hart Foundation ran in. They were sitting in the front row. They ran in when the match was over to attack. Silver Tower, you get the last word here. Thank you for the final super chat. Silver Tower always supporting here on these streams, especially with the gifted memberships. So very much appreciated. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I got a early wake up in the morning, flying out of here. I'll be out of town on business. So I will be back with you for Sound Off episode 809 coming up this Sunday. Until then, be well, stay safe, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of your week. We'll see you back here next week for more live streams. Take care.